Today I'm going to show you how I make bluebirds in oil paint. So we're going to make two different bluebirds today, one with a profile view and one facing forward, or en face as they say in ballet. So I'm going to start by taking some gessoed panels and just applying some yellow ochre that is actually acrylic because it'll dry fast and because it's over acrylic gesso on a solid wood surface, so that's not a big deal to just use the acrylic underneath. If I had more time, I'd use the oil. So these are the mediums I'm going to use. I'm using a Gamsol and a refined linseed oil. Alright, so once I've got all the panels, the sides, the ground on, and I'm going to put I just made sure that I have a little notch on the back. I don't know if you saw, so I'm just making sure that I have that in the right position so I'm not painting it upside down. Okay, so the colors I'm using are titanium, zinc white, titanium white, Payne's gray, cobalt blue, transparent earth orange, a transparent yellow oxide, Quinacridone red, Pazzouli, it's some sort of Italian earth color, and a cadmium yellow. Alright, so again, when you're painting them, you could use paint to draw. I actually just use a marker to sketch the birds on my panels, and one's facing forward, and sorry, I meant to video me actually sketching them, but for the forward one, I just make a little, it's basically just a little round ball and a shorter head. And depending how squatty he is, the tail could be up high, or as you see on the left, the one that's more stretched out and elongated, the tail is going to be down. That's the anatomy of the bird in that position. So for the side, the bluebird has a pretty thin black beak, and then from the front, it's just kind of like a diamond shape, really. Okay, we're going to just put out my colors. I have one little squirt of the titanium zinc white, 2 squirts of the titanium white, cadmium yellow. I like to go from light to dark and then also from warm to cool in general. I mean, there's no set rule here, but that's kind of the way I plan my palettes. So we're just laying out all my colors. I also have some Kleenex tissue. You could use a cotton rag. This is just what I'm using for this video. And then I'm just using some plastic cups for my, everything's pretty much disposable for this painting, but you can for sure use non-disposable items like tin cups and a cloth instead of old rags for wiping, cleaning up. Okay, so these panels also, this is just one of my mediums. I also work in canvas and linen, and for those I always prefer usually because it's more absorbent, the oil background, which would take longer to dry, and I would normally also do that. I just use the acrylic as a shortcut, and it be on the hardwood surface. It's not gonna have an adverse effect. So okay, I'm just mixing up the Payne's grays, a little bit of the cobalt blue, just spreading it out thin. I mixed a little bit of the Quinacridone red with the, I think it's called Pazzouli red. It's an Italian earth red that's very opaque. So the bluebird, the eastern bluebird, actually has a red breast. So it's kind of like a rusty red. So that's what I'm going to work on, and I'm just trying, as you see, I don't have any problems with these birds in using pure color right out of the tube. Some people say, no, you can never use it just out of the tube. You always have to start mixing it. But my rule is I can do that with one or two of the colors on these very vibrant birds, because these birds, when I see them in nature, no, I'm not talking a sparrow or a really scrubby little bird, but these brighter colored birds, I mean, they have some intense color. So having a little bit right out of the tube, I wouldn't want more than two colors, depending on the pattern and the way your overall tone of your painting is and the mood. Sometimes I will use just straight out of the tube color, and then I start breaking it down from there. And you really don't want to make muddy colors, so I only mixed two colors at a time. Cobalt's a really nice neutral and transparent color, so it can go a little bit darker by mixing it with the Payne's gray. It can go a little bit it makes really nice purples with the Quinacridone. Some other of the blues, like phthalo, I don't really like that very often because it doesn't mix very well with, it just doesn't have some of the qualities I like for making gem-like colors. So it does make a really nice green and a really nice greenish blue, but that's about it. So these colors I feel like are the cobalt blue and also the ultramarine blue are a little more versatile. Okay, so now I'm working on the background. And again, I just started with, these are all mixtures of a primary color source, which is the blue, red, and yellow. And as you can see, that's made also an orange, it's made this violet, and the green for the little leaf. And I'm just adding a little bit more of each of the colors to vary the background, some of the strokes a little bit, just to give a little more variety to the background and movement, so it's not just a solid colors. And also some of the strokes, you can see I'm kind of flicking the brush with more of a staccato movement, and then others I do more slowly, and that way you can get a more fine-tuned and controlled look. But some of the quicker strokes that actually blend the edges and soften the edges give the painting a more painterly feel. Okay, as you can see, I'm really toning down this purple now. It's almost like a grayish brown color. I warmed it up with some of the red and yellow. So just mainly working with these three colors. I'll even grab some of these already pre-mixed colors, as long as it's just these three colors. You want to mix them thoroughly so it's not streaky, but you don't want to mix so much that you're kind of muddying down the pigments, if that makes sense. So now I am kind of using a controlled brush stroke to get in all the tight little corners. And you don't have to, around the edges I don't, as you can see, some of the corners I've left actually unpainted. It's more tightly controlled around the subject and the focal point of your painting. And so we just have a simple bird with a leaf on a branch, very simple composition, but you can really work on some fun coloring, practicing using different colors. I'm using all the primary colors in this painting, and you can see the variety that you get with these basically 3 or 4 colors. Another thing I do is I don't, I've gone to I've taught some classes where some of the students have had other teachers that pre-mixed their mediums. They would make a mixture of their Gamsol and or turpentine and linseed oil, and I don't do that because some layers I want thinner and some layers I want fatter. So for me it's best to just mix as I go, and that way you can control for every single stroke. Alright, so once you get the basic colors down, a lot of times I'll try to grab some of the background and put it into a little bit of the other colors to define the edges, and then also the front of the bird that's going to be closest to the viewer. I'll do that. I'm also mixing up some highlights here, and as you can see, I'm using finally the titanium zinc white because it's the most opaque and brightest white, so I'm using it for the whitest whites on the painting. And so I always, on these birds, usually start with not just laying a dark eye, but laying down a lighter color over it, and then that's just the way a lot of times the feathers and the anatomy of the bird looks. So it also helps the eyes stand out against the darker color. Now the squatty bird, his legs are going to be his feet are going to be closer together, and then the elongated bird, his legs, as you can see, are farther apart and a little bit more stretched out. Okay, now I'm going to make some highlights for his eyes, and we'll just use the color I used for the sky or the background, and just first I'm mixing it with some of the dark, mixing some of the background with some of the dark to do like a little bit of highlight on the legs or the feet, but it's not as high as this gleam in the eye. And then we also put a little bit on the tip of the nose in the front, just so you can kind of pop the beak out a little bit and give it the effect that it's literally, you know, jumping off the canvas or the board. All right, last but not least is sign your name, and we are done. I hope you enjoyed this project.